Greetings, salutations, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devin, and welcome to part 3 of structuring your game. Now, you're probably taking a look at my screen, and you're probably like, hey, what's going on here? Devin, everything is so tiny. It's like, well, for this part of structuring your game, I'm covering screen handling and a specific script that I developed, which makes that very handy for me. And of course, in order to show that, I have to show my entire monitor, and not just this much of it, which is what you guys are used to seeing. So here's what we got going on. I got this script here called skr_full window. We are going to go over how you create this thing here in a moment, but first I want to show you what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and run the game. Now, the game hasn't really changed much since before. I mean, we can still control Happy Harry and make him bump into our Grumpy Graham right there. But you see that? Look at that. The window blew up to not full screen, but a pretty respectable size. And the best part is, I can go ahead and control him moving around. The best part is the script handles this automatically. You don't have to do anything too crazy in order to make this work. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our controller_game. Well, I'm going to. You don't have this yet. And you'll see the script right here, skr full window. We have 2 arguments. That is all this takes. The first argument is the height of your game in pixels, or, with some rewrite to the script, if you're making a mobile game, you can make it so it's the width of the pixels instead. And then the scale, you want the script to scale the game window up to. Now, you'll notice it's 0. Right? Well, then why isn't it just, unseat? Well, 0 is a special case. When it is set to 0, it scales it up automatically as large as it can get and rounds it down. So it will, but however, it doesn't consider square numbers like, 2, 4, 8, 16, so it doesn't consider that. So for those of you pixel perfect scaling freaks out there, you may have to write up some logic and then input a number if you want to match that. But, this script is totally workable for you in that sense. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the recording real quick so I can swap back to my other recording mode. All right, then, welcome back. So I got the script open, that being, of course, skr_full window right here. I made a couple of minor changes in between videos to, shorten it up a little bit, clean it up, make it look a little bit nicer. And I, of course, tested it to make sure that it does indeed work, and it does. So here we go. This is the script. It's a modest 41 lines code. That's not including this huge, beastly chunk of explanatory text here. But anyways, so let's go ahead, tear it down, and build it back up. Boom. All right, so first thing we need to do is declare and define our temporary variables. As is good practice when you're doing a script in GameMaker, make all your variables temporary variables. So our first variable, set height, is equal to argument 0. All right, so that's our first argument. Simple enough, simple enough. And then we got set scale is equal to argument 1. Still pretty simple. Look at that. We got our first and second arguments in an array. Well, our only 2 arguments. So now for the next 2 temporary variables, see, we need to access the display width and height a decent amount. So we are definitely going to need those numbers, and we're going to want to be able to access them quite easily. So we're going to have disp w is equal to display get width. There we go. And now bear in mind, very important, these are commas, not semicolons. When we're declaring listing temporary variables, we can actually use commas and set them up at, in this fashion. It's kind of handy, actually. Now next is disp h, which, you guessed it, display get height. There we go. Now we got our height stored in a variable. So we have our display width and height. Now, I forgot to mention that another thing this script does is it automatically changes the ratio of your view in the game to match that of your computer monitor. Now, you're probably wondering, Devin, why would you do that? I mean, it's kind of cool, but why? And what's the point? Well, when you go into actual full screen mode, it looks nice. Your pixels aren't being stretched, which is incredibly fantastic. So we're going to start off, I'm going to type in ratval, or what is our ratio value. It is disp width divided by disp height. width divided by height, and then it gives us a a fantastic little number that we can use to set some values later, namely about right now. So h, which will be the height of our view in game, is equal to floor set height. There we go. Now you're probably wondering, Evan, why are you flooring this? Well, there, I actually got the right variable. There we go. Well, the reason why we're flooring it is because we're going to be flooring a lot of values in this script. Now, if you don't know what floor is, like if you have a number 8.92, it will return 8. Or 8.32, it will return 8. It rounds it down is what it does. Now, the reason why we are rounding down is because it is better for the view to be just slightly too small than slightly too big. It doesn't mean that we can't scale it perfectly to the computer monitor, because we most certainly can, but I find it best to keep it just a little bit under. Not a lot, just a little bit. At least for window mode. The whole point of window mode is so you can move the window around, right? So that's why we are doing that. And then, of course, we are setting our width, which is equal to floor. I'm sure you can guess this one. Set width, or sweat height. Hey, wait a minute, set height. Well, yeah, we don't have a set width, do we? Well, how are we going to get the width then? Well, like this. Times rat val. We now just dynamically figured out what the width of the view in-game is supposed to be based on the computer monitor dimensions. There we go. And then semicolon. Always end it with a semicolon whenever you're doing a list of temporary variables like that. So we now have our tools. Now we just need to put the tools to work. So first we need to set some view properties, because this does require views in order to work. So we got to make sure that the views are on. Visible. We'll just say 0. Which means that if you're going to have multiple views, you may have to get a little creative, but otherwise, for most purposes, this should work just fine. We definitely want to make sure the view is enabled. Equals true. View underscore h view 0 is equal to h, which is, of course, this number right here. We're setting the height in game. That's where our h's are right there. They're just the height in game. So then view underscore with view 0 is equal to width. All right, now we set our view properties. Now we just need to set the conditions and then process everything and do what needs to be done. So decide how we are going to, oh my goodness, to scale this. So if set scale equals 0, goes else. Actually, we'll do the else later. So as you recall, I set the scale to 0 in the example. Now, like I said, you can set it to 1. And in fact, I didn't show it off. I'll show that off, here in a bit. But we set it to 0. We just want it to handle everything automatically, make it as large as it can reasonably get. So first, we need to declare another temporary variable, but only one more. This is the last one, I swear. Scale 2 is equal to floor h divided by h. Basically, what this number is, this is how large we are going to scale the in-game window. Because otherwise, by default, it's basically just a 1 ratio. As it currently stands, the game is just simply a 1 ratio. It's as big as it can possibly be on the screen. So what we're figuring out here is how large we can make it, or how small it is comparison to the screen. And once we have that number, we floor it, and then we can scale it up to that amount, and it'll be as big as it can possibly get. So view underscore width port 0 is equal to width times scale 2. View underscore h port 0 is equal to h times scale 2. All right, so we set the port sizes. Well, that's fine and dandy and all, but there's a few more little things that we got to do. We got to call two functions, and that is window set size, which is the built-in GameMaker function for setting your window size. View underscore width port, we just set it as large as the port. Keep things nice and simple. View underscore H port. And then the other one is window set position, because we need to center it. Otherwise, it's not going to be centered in your computer monitor and it'll look very poopy. And we don't want it to look poopy. We want it to look nice. So, this is going to get a little crazy. This W minus view underscore width port 0 divided by 2. That's our X value on the computer monitor. Now, in case you're wondering what's going on here, so it's getting our display width, or basically, the width of our computer monitor, and then is subtracting it by the port, which will be, say, this big, and then dividing it by 2. So it will put it on the x-axis, exactly in the center, based on the x and y value of the window being in the upper left-hand corner, which is where it is. Then we do kind of this, actually pretty much the exact same thing here. Minus view underscore not view, port. There we go. Yeah, very important. We want to make sure that's port, not view. Divide by 2. Now let's make sure everything lines up. It looks like it does. And that's pretty much it. As far as scaling it automatically, we should be pretty much done. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and test it. Hey, why not? It's going to look really funky on your screen because everything is really tiny. It's just going to blow up and explode. Okay, that is actually incorrect. Okay, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong, people. What did I do? Oh, I know what I forgot. Ha, 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 ha. I'm a dummy. I forgot a very important function we need to call at the end. Surface, resize, application, surface, view, port 0, view, H port 0. And maybe I should learn how to spell with port. Okay. So, I developed this script back in GameMaker 8.1. Imagine my surprise when all of a sudden it didn't work when I brought it into GameMaker Studio. You need this function here for GameMaker Studio. Now I'm going to go ahead and test run it again, and it should work like a charm. You see, what I was getting little black bars at the top and bottom. And we don't want little black bars. Now everything works perfectly. We don't want little black bars. We want everything to scale perfectly in the window. And in order to do that in GameMaker Studio, you need this function. Now, we're almost done. We just got to do one more thing and set up conditions for when it's, when we don't want to do it automatically. When we want it to be scaled by a specific amount. So, here we go. We're going to type in else. So, for all other numbers when they're entered, which, by the way, this is going to be very recognizable, I guarantee you, because we're just going to copy this right here, and we're going to change this to set scale and set scale. Scale. There we go. And we're done. Now we should be able to enter pretty much any number that we want, and it will make it scaled at whatever we set it to. So I'm going to test it one more time, just make sure nothing explodes. And nothing went boom, so all is good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my controller underscore game. And of course it is in the room start event because that's where you want it. I'm going to set this to 1. Now, you remember how ridiculously large the window was because it made it as big as it possibly could in my computer monitor? Well, I set it to scale by only 1. And hey, come back. There we go. So this is 1:1 scale. This is exactly how large it is on the computer monitor. And of course you can set it to 2 and it'll be a little bit larger. I'll just go ahead and set it to 2. So 1 is essentially no scaling at all. 2 is twice as big, 3 times as big, as big as you want it. So like this is ideal size for, presentation reasons, for my tutorials here. But yeah, so there you go. And it's just all handled automatically by this beautiful script right here. Now, hi phone. Now, in keeping with the system and figuring out nice little things to do for ourselves, a little idea here. So, if you remember in the first part, we set up this script underscore any. Now, you remember our global variables here? We're going to set another global variable, I think. Global dot screen height is equal to 200. Now, anything that you can set here, so that you can change it in one nice convenient little spot that is kind of globally game related, please do it. You'll love yourself so much for it. So now instead of just being a raw 200 right there, boop, there we go. Now we can just set the height, and I'm just gonna actually I'll leave that at 2. But under most circumstances, you'll just want to set that to 0, unless you're like I said you're a pixel perfect freak like I kind of am. But anyways, so that pretty much does it. That wasn't too bad. I hope you found this video useful. I hope that you find it in your hearts to check out my website, maybe even check out my work, and leave a like, maybe even subscribe. I mean, it's your guys' feedback that is really keeping me going on these videos. So, leave feedback. I love hearing what you guys say about my work. I guess that pretty much does it. Thank you very much for watching, and happy gaming.